This is an oral history interview conducted for the Witness to War, Serving a Nation at Nauset Regional High School on Cape Cod, Massachusetts. For the sake of this interview, please state your full name and the community in which you now reside.
My name is Gerard Potvin, and I think I live in, Provincetown, Massachusetts.
Thank you, Jerry. So, first and foremost, where were you born?
I was born in Manchester, New Hampshire.
Okay. Following that, can you tell us a little bit about your life in New Hampshire?
Well, my life in New Hampshire was rather interesting. I went to French-speaking parochial school, and then I went on to high school in Manchester, at Central High School, and then I graduated from Bishop Bradley, was a Catholic high school.
Okay. How did you end up on Cape Cod?
Well, I got in my car one day and I just drove it to Cape Cod. That's how I really got here.
Really?
Yeah, that was it. I just went to the end of the road and there was Provincetown.
Interesting. So may I ask when you came? The year?
The year I can't really remember because I've had a stroke. So I can't really focus in on the exact year. But I think it's somewhere in the vicinity of the 80s.
Oh, okay. So do you have family currently living on Cape Cod?
No, I have no family left.
No. So what was your family's reaction to you going into the Navy?
It was a very pleasant reaction because I had two brothers prior that one went into the Air Force and one went into the Navy. So they were, settled with that.
Okay. Interesting. So may I ask for the conflict you served in?
The conflict?
Yes. I believe prior to this you mentioned something about the Bay of Pigs. Do you mind just briefly describing what the Bay of Pigs is?
Well, it was a confrontation between Cuba and the United States. But how would I put it? It wasn't as traumatic as that because we picked up Fidel Castro picked up his people and took off, and we picked up our people and took off.
Yeah.
But for a while there it got kind of heated.
And I believe the President of the United States was Kennedy. So
Yes.
do you have anything to say regarding him?
Oh, he was a great president. The problem there is President Kennedy never fulfilled his full term. He was assassinated 3.5 years. He never served a full term of 4 years because, unfortunately, he was killed when he was campaigning for re-election when he was killed.
Did you enlist to war or were you drafted?
I enlisted.
You enlisted. And follow-up question, how did you react to enlisting?
How did I react to it?
To enlisting. Was it something that you always wanted to do?
Oh, no. As a matter of fact, I was in the seminary studying to be a priest. But things changed because the things were very strict in those days for candidates for the priesthood, the Catholic priesthood. And so it was it was like night and day. For example, the thing that got me is, in a seminary, if you were going to take a shower, you went into two stalls. One you undressed, and the second one, I forget what the heck you did there. And then you went into the shower. We were very modest. And then suddenly, when I was in the Navy, everyone's running around Baliki Barras. So the change was quite dramatic.
Was that transition hard for you?
At first. But I had my faith, and so I just hung on to that. But the transition was difficult. Yeah.
And do you think now, currently, your experience in the Navy
Helped?
helped?
Oh, by all means. It's the military experience. I think for anybody, we don't have a. When I was in, we had a mandatory draft. Everyone had to serve time, and now we don't. We have an involuntary draft, but the experience is well worth it. Well worth it.
So, can you explain to us what position you served?
I was a hospital corpsman. That's the equivalent of what you people might call a medic. I was in the hospital corps, in the medical corps, and that was very, very interesting, and I enjoyed that very, very much. Very interesting.
So, my next question was, were you satisfied with that position?
Oh yeah, I liked it very much. Yeah.
And can you list a few reasons?
For one reason, you were expanded your education because there were a lot of things that you were learning. I went to core school, which is a school in I forget now where it is. It's I forget what state it is, but there are two schools. One in California, and then there's one in New England or in North, and it's what was the question again?
Like list a few
Okay.
reasons why you were satisfied with
Oh
that
yeah,
position.
well the service itself, what you do in the service, you assist the physician, and in some cases, you really do get involved in the care of the patient. I mean, it depends where you are, and how staffed they are, you know. But it's a high. I found it was highly educational. The doctors, especially, were very eager to teach us. So it was. They had sort of a joke about the hospital corps. You see one, you do one, you teach one. So it was a very good experience.
Yes.
Yes, they had core waves too.
Oh.
So I was in a mixed company, which means we had men and women, and then there was another company that was all men, and then another company that was all women. I'm glad I was in a company that was men and women. I think it was very healthy.
Yeah.
We had core waves and core men.
So, despite your satisfaction with that position, did you ever desire another, wanting to
Do something
have another?
else?
Yeah, wanting
Well,
to do something else.
obviously, I was wanted to be a priest.
Yeah.
So, it was so, well, I can't say it was second best, but in some ways, I suppose that's what you could say. That wasn't my primary desire.
Yeah.
But, you know, in life, faith throws you all over the place. You can plan, but you never really know where you're going to land, you know? You might want to do something, and you just detour it and do something else.
Indeed.
So being adaptable, I think, for everybody in any case is very important.
Yeah. Were there any, like currently right now, are there any quotes that you can share that you live by, or?
Well, just be grateful for every day that comes along.
Yes,
Make the most of it.
definitely.
Yeah.
So, can you explain some feelings that you encountered while serving at the hospital?
Well, I felt I was doing something good, and also I was learning a lot too. The doctors were very, very, well, nice is just a small word, but they were very eager to teach you. So you were always learning, and you also were expected to teach as well. You always had somebody coming behind you that was sort of coming along the road like you did, so you were teaching them. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You were passing things on. So it was an ongoing thing. It was really good.
That's nice.
Yeah.
How long did you serve?
I served 4 years active duty. That's how you do it. And then 2 years reserve duty. Those 2 years, they can call you back at any time. So you're just on the list, of reserve list. Meaning, and I'm surprised they didn't, because shortly after I got out, they had the Cuban crisis, and I thought for sure I'd get called back.
And do you still, I know of course you're going to remember it, but do you still reflect upon the Bay of Pigs?
Not much.
No.
Not much.
So it was Cuba versus the United States, and how do you feel about that if you were to reflect upon that today?
Today, well, you go with your country. We have, as a person serving, this is what part of serving is. It's taking orders. And you sort of give up your independence because someone tells you to do something, you do it, that's it. And you don't question or you complain or bellyache or anything like that. You just do it. And that's part of military training.
And is that how you felt as well?
Well, that's part of the training.
Oh.
So you just go along with it because this is not civilian life where you can, you in some way when you go into a military situation, you give up your independence because you are drilled and you have to take orders. So it's not I don't want to do it or I don't like it, it's you do it.
Exactly.
That's what military life's all about.
And do you mind just explaining, so I know, did you selectively choose to be in the Navy?
Yes.
Okay. And is that something that you always wanted to do, like it's the Navy?
No, I wanted to be a priest. So I had no intention.
Okay.
I had no intention of going in the service of any kind. Because everything was geared towards the priest, which is a ministry. And so this was a bit of a shock to me.
And do you have family that are in the Navy?
Oh no, nobody left, and because I'm the youngest, and they're all too old to do that.
And do you mind telling us the date, the year in which you served, the years?
I think it's 1960 to 1965, or no, 1960, 1964. You serve 4 years of active duty, and then you have 2 years where you can be recalled at any time, and that's called inactive reserve. So it's a total, you're actually committed for 6 years.
Did the inactive reserve frighten you at all?
Well, I didn't want to be called back. I had done 4 years.
Yeah.
And you see a lot of good things, and I went in with, I think, the right attitude. But you want to break away from that because your life really isn't your own. I mean, you don't make your decisions. They are all made for you. And they can say to you, you can go to Georgia tomorrow morning. Just pick up your bag and go. And you do it. But, and I guess what I'm saying is your independence. You don't have an independence. Although, I mean, you're still, you know, you don't have to take orders, but if you don't, you get your behind kicked out. Now that's not good.
So given the fact that the Bay of Pigs ended on April 19th, 1961, can you describe how serving was following that?
Following that, it was just the same. There was not much change in it. It didn't last very long. And the Cuban crisis didn't last very long because then President Kennedy was the President of the United States. And he was young compared to, I think his name was Gorbachev, the Russian leader. Don't quote me, but I know I think it was either Gorbachev or some other name that I can't recall right this meaning. It was a meeting of the minds, two heads bunking each other, and it was Khrushchev, that's who it was. It was President Khrushchev of Russia. He was, I thought he, from what I knew of him and heard of him, I thought he was rather an ignorant man. He was a Bolshevik, you know, Russian man. And I think, and a lot of people agree with me, they figured Mr. Kennedy was just a kid. He was 43, it's that. And they thought, the Russians, leaders, thought we're going to scare this young president out of his mind and he'll give in. And they were very surprised to find out that that didn't, he came back swinging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just wanted to follow what you just said. Did you agree with the saying that Kennedy was just a kid?
I was not very political because I had, my mind was occupied more with my studies in the hospital corps, and I've never been very political, and so, but it was obvious to all of us, all Americans, that the Russians were aggressively trying to take over the country. So naturally, my sympathies and efforts went in our country. So that's it.
And did Kennedy change your mind at all?
Oh no, no, he did a great job. He stood up to them. And he was young. He was 40, I think he was either 42 or 43. And I think this is why they pushed us in Cuba, because they were under the impression he was a young man and they were going to scare him, a young boy, and they're going to scare him. It didn't scare him at all.
So at the hospital which you served at, were there any moments that were remarkable or memorable that you will still remember to this day?
Yeah, I think I worked with, the things I remember was labor and delivery. And everybody says, what were you doing delivering babies in the Navy? Well, that was one of our busiest services because the men in the Navy, if they're in the Navy and they're married, they call their wife a dependent. And if they have children, which they can have 1, 2, 3, then they have 3 dependents. The Navy covers them expense-wise. So a lot of young people would join the Navy and start their family because it was very economical. They got good care and the Navy paid for it. Up to 3 children. After that, they didn't.
And do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. They're serving their nation and they're in a fixed income, and it's one of the benefits of serving your country. And it's also helping your family, you know, your wife and the kids. And there can be dependent men, believe it or not.
Yeah.
We had nurses who had dependent husbands. Yeah.
That's interesting. So now I'm just going to shift into talking about feelings that you have now after military service. So reflecting upon your service, how do you feel?
Do you mean feelings about the service?
Yes, now, since after.
I still feel it's about the same way. I mean, when I first went in, I said to myself, excuse me, well, I'm going to go in and serve, and that means that my nephews and my children won't have to. That's how I felt. I'll do this so those kids coming after me don't have to do it, which was a foolish thing because they still keep coming. But I forgot the question, actually.
So, like right now, when you're reflecting upon the service that you did, how do you feel as a person?
Oh, good. I'm glad I did it. Yeah, I'm
Nice.
glad I did it. No, two ways about it. It's like anything in life. It's what you put into it is what you're going to get out of it. If you go in there with a bad attitude, you won't stay very long because they'll bounce you out, actually. It'll show up, you know. But I'm glad I did it. I think we should serve our country. As far as mandatory draft, I don't know. I have no opinion about that.
Can you provide us with a few tips or tricks if someone were to go into the Navy now?
Yeah, you've got to have the right attitude. That's very important. And the Navy or any of the services, what they try to do is to place you where you'll be most useful, but you'll also be more comfortable. So they do give you a choice. I had a choice because I had worked in a hospital. I had a lot of hospital training. So I slipped into that. A lot of some of the men that served were young and they had no vocations yet. And this gave them an opportunity to get an education, and to follow. I don't know, a lot of the men came out, and the training they had in the service, they used it in civilian life to earn their living. So it's a beneficial thing. And once again, it's all attitude, you know.
And what was your training like?
Oh, I was great. It was wonderful. I was trained in the hospital floor, and I worked in the operating room, and I worked shoulder to shoulder with doctors. So I learned a lot. And these are educated people. It wasn't, grungy or that sort of thing. These were very learned men. They were highly educated men. And they loved to teach. So everything they did, they would tell you why they were doing it. And the only thing that would upset them is somebody wasn't paying attention, because they really loved to teach. So it was a very good experience.
And just one question that I had previously that I did not ask. The Bay of Pigs was only 2 days. It lasted 2 days, from April 17th, 1961 to April 19th, 1961. And can you remember how, the reaction to everyone?
Well, I think the first reaction was fright, because at that time we had a nuclear weapon, and it was said that Russia did too. And one time was like we were pointing a gun at each other, who was going to hit the trigger first. So this was that expression, air trigger. That's what we were, it would just take one person to decide to toss the bomb, and the other one would toss the bomb, and then nobody would win.
Yeah.
It was like a suicide mission, you might say. Fortunately, this Mr. Gorbachev, who was really a creep, he wasn't a very bright man, but Mr. Kennedy, although he was very young and he hadn't been president very long, that was the whole thing. They thought he was a kid. They were going to scare him, and they got a big surprise because he stood by it. And so we packed up and went home, fortunately, and nothing was, no casualties or anything.
God bless you.
Yes.
Well, I have here that there was a decisive Cuban government victory. That's when I was researching.
I don't think so.
So
Where did you get that information?
I cited that from my sources here, but
It wasn't a Cuban victory. If anything, I'd say that it was a victory for the United States because of President Kennedy. But it was just like you and I we just would put down say, see you, you'd say, see me, and we'd leave. So if anything, it was both a victory for both sides, because we would have blown each other away. We had nuclear weapons. And the decisive thing with the Cuban crisis was they shot off, where was it? An atomic bomb, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. That ended World War II. That's what ended World War II. They shot off that atomic bomb, and that everybody packed up and went home. But we didn't know. We were capable, but we didn't do it. And the Russians were capable, but they didn't do it. It would have been mutual suicide. And although Mr. Gorbachev was, I wouldn't consider him a very intelligent man. He was kind of a crude, hard-nosed Russian. But it was a wise move that we laid down our arms and turned around and went home.
And dealing with nuclear weapons, did that frighten you at all?
Yeah, because you could destroy a whole nation with that. You could destroy the world. It's very serious business. And now every country seems to have one, which is, for me, I think that's very frightening. Because it's only going to take one hothead to throw a bomb, then the other ones will throw a bomb back at you, and before we know it, we're dead. Because now we have nuclear power.
And we're coming to an end with the interview, just about a few minutes left, so I would like to ask you if there's anything that you'd like to leave us with. Any influential...
philosophical thing?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm very idealistic, Put away the arms and strive for peace and not for war. But I don't know if you look at history, way down the road, even before the time of Christ, people were fighting. And I guess ideally, it would be nice if the world would live in peace, but it doesn't seem like it's going to happen. It never has. There's always some corner of the world or somebody that's trying to overpower the other one, So I don't see, it would be nice, that would be my ideal, if everybody just laid down, got rid of arms and just lived. We've got a lot of research to do in medicine. We still have a lot of illnesses running around that we need to spend our time on research for that. Instead of building a bomb it's called national defense. We've always had it, and we've been through some harrowing things. I mean, World War I, World War II, and then Cuba wasn't too bad, but then Vietnam was horrible, absolutely horrible. And we're involved somewhere now, again, somewhere. It seems like it's human nature or something. And there is talk, so I've heard, of reinstating the draft, which I don't know if that's very good. To keep up our defense.
Yeah.
To keep our defenses up. But it takes a punk out of your life, I'll tell you.
Yes.
When you could be going to college and finishing up, or working on some, what do they call this, training, what do they call it? Occupational training, learning a good trade. But there's a lot of need for that too.
Yeah.
So that's it.
Thank you. I've learned a lot during your interview, and thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome, dear.
Thank you.
Yeah. Your hands are cold. Are you feeling all right?
Yes.